Okay, seriously, this article, what if Taylor Swift just vanished?
It's a pretty bleak thought experiment, I'll give you that.
The leak is an understatement.
Yeah.
I'm already reaching for the tissues.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin to process something like that?
Well, the article tries to look past the initial shock and explore the ripple effects, not just the emotional ones, but the cultural and economic ones, too.
I guess I get the point. But right now, all I can think about is silence. No new albums, no more surprise songs, no more Eras tour.
It's okay to feel that way. It would be a huge loss, no question. And the article acknowledges the massive global outpouring of grief that would undoubtedly follow.
You think? It would be like the internet would break. And that's not even touching on the music industry itself. She's a powerhouse.
Exactly. She's not just a singer-songwriter. She's a force to be reckoned with in the music world. Think about the billions of dollars tied to her success. What happens to that if she's suddenly gone?
And what about all the artists she's inspired? Her fight for artists' rights, owning her masters? Yeah. Would that momentum just stop?
That's a really good question. Remember when she re-recorded all those early albums? That sent shockwaves through the industry. It was a bold move, and it made other artists realize they had options.
It was like she was saying, we don't have to play by their rules anymore. Man, that takes guts.
It does, and it raises the question, who fills that void if she's not there? Would other artists step up and continue that fight?
Okay, but back to the hypothetical heartbreak for a second. The article also talks about the Eras tour. Right? Like, what would happen to that?
It would obviously be canceled, which, putting aside the emotional devastation, would have a huge economic impact.
Hold on, seriously. Like, more than just disappointed fans.
Oh, way more. The article actually breaks down the tour's economic impact, and it's mind-blowing. We're talking about a massive revenue generator, not just from ticket sales, but from tourism, local spending, and a ripple effect that reaches far beyond the concert venues themselves.
Oh, the ripple effect? Like, what does that even mean?
Think of it like this when fans travel to see the Eras tour. They're not just buying concert tickets. They're booking hotels, eating at restaurants, taking taxis, maybe even buying souvenirs. All of that spending adds up.
Okay, that makes sense. But how much are we really talking about here? Is it enough to actually matter?
Oh, it absolutely matters. The article cites a specific example. Her concerts in Mexico City alone generated an estimated $59 million in revenue. And that's just one stop on the tour. Imagine that impact multiplied across dozens of cities worldwide.
$59 million? Just from a few concerts. My brain can't even process that.
It's a staggering figure, and it highlights how the Eras Tour is basically its own economic ecosystem. But there's another layer to this that we haven't even touched on yet. The article mentions that the Federal Reserve, the folks who control our money, are actually keeping tabs on the tour.
Wait, seriously? The Fed is watching Taylor Swift? Why?
It's not about her specifically. It's about the economic phenomenon she represents. Remember when we talked about that surge in spending around the tour? Well, when you have that much money suddenly flowing into certain sectors, it can impact prices.
You mean like everything gets more expensive?
Exactly. It's called inflation, and it's something the Fed tries to keep in check. When demand for things like hotels, flights, and even Taylor Swift merchandise skyrockets, but the supply stays, the same prices go up.
Okay, I kind of remember learning about that in economics class, but honestly, I was too busy daydreaming about Taylor Swift to pay attention.
Well, now you're seeing it in action. The Eras Tour is a perfect case study in how individual spending choices amplified on a massive scale can have real consequences for the economy as a whole.
That's kind of terrifying, to be honest. Like, what if everyone decided to buy a sparkly cowboy hat at the same time? Would the economy just implode?
Not quite implode, but you get the idea. The Fed's job is to try to anticipate these kinds of fluctuations and make adjustments to keep things stable. So yeah, they're paying attention to the Eras Tour because it's a powerful economic force.
My mind is officially blown. So to recap, if Taylor Swift were to vanish, we'd lose more than just her music. We'd lose a cultural icon, an advocate for artists' rights, and a major economic engine. Did I miss anything?
Well, the article also touches on something we haven't discussed yet, her global impact.
Oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that. I mean, her fans are everywhere. Remember those photos of fans camping out for days in, Brazil just to get tickets?
Exactly. Her fan base spans continents, and her influence extends beyond music. She's a fashion trendsetter, a social media powerhouse, and a voice for important causes. Her disappearance wouldn't just be felt in America, it would be a global event.
That makes me think about something else. The article mentioned soft power. What was that all about again?
Soft power is basically the ability to influence others through culture and values rather than through military force or economic pressure. It's about persuasion and attraction.
So Taylor Swift is basically a diplomat for American culture.
In a way, yes. Her music, her style, her message, It all resonates with people worldwide, and
Yeah.
that creates connections and fosters understanding across borders.
Okay, but back to the hypothetical for a second. If Taylor Swift's soft power is that strong, wouldn't her absence create like a global power vacuum?
That's a really interesting question. Who would fill that void? Would another artist step up and become that voice for a generation? Or would the landscape of pop culture shift in a completely different direction?
Man, this is all making my head spin. We started with a simple what-if scenario, and now we're talking about global economics, soft power, and the future of pop culture.
And that's the beauty of these explorations. You never know where they'll lead. Sometimes the most unexpected connections are the most illuminating.
So where do we go from here? What's the big takeaway from all of this, besides the fact that I need to go hug my Taylor Swift albums like right now?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the impact of someone like Taylor Swift goes far beyond the surface. We tend to think of pop culture as entertainment, but as this thought experiment has shown us, its influence can be profound, touching on everything from economics to global politics.
And that even the hypothetical disappearance of one person can send ripples throughout the world?
Precisely. It forces us to consider the interconnectedness of things, the power of individuals to shape culture, and the often overlooked influence of pop music.
Okay, but seriously, if one artist can have that much influence, doesn't it make you wonder about the power of pop culture in general? Are we, putting too much stock in celebrities?
It's a valid question. Pop culture has always been a mirror to society, but with social media and instant global connection, its impact has definitely amplified.
It's like Taylor Swift isn't just a person anymore. She's a brand, a movement, a force of nature with killer songwriting skills.
And that force of nature, as we've seen, has both economic and social implications. It can boost entire economies, shape global trends, even spark conversations about important social issues.
So what are listeners supposed to take away from all of this? Should we be stockpiling Taylor Swift albums in case she pulls a disappearing act?
I wouldn't recommend hoarding merchandise, but I do think the real takeaway is appreciating how complex these issues really are. We tend to take pop culture for granted, but as this thought experiment has shown us, its influence runs deeper than we often realize.
Honestly, this whole conversation has made me see her music in a whole new light. Part of me just wants to blast, shake it off, and dance away the existential dread.
I think that's a perfectly healthy response.
But before we go, I have one last question for our listeners.
Go ahead.
Think about your favorite artist, musician, or even that influencer you can't stop watching. Now imagine them suddenly gone, poof, vanished. What would the world be like without them? How would things change, big or small? It's definitely something to think about.
It is indeed. Until next time, folks, stay curious and never underestimate the power of a catchy tune.